Well, we're on KGU Radio today, and we're going to videotape our conversation and bring it to you as a special all about rail transportation and how it is just not appropriate for Honolulu.
Dennis Kalin, he is back today, by the way. He's welcome back live in the studio, Dennis.
I am here to tell you all about rail.
Okay, yeah, Dennis has an interesting background, 2 master's degrees from UH, graduate studies in urban planning, co-founder of the Stop Rail Now 207, professional tour leader of over 75, mostly European tours, most of them done by train. You're a train expert. Don't you have a website with something to do with train?
It's called Tours by Train. Yeah, I love trains in the right place, just not here.
You've ridden 500 different intercity trains, 50 urban metro systems, most of it Europe.
Yep.
Same smell. So in other words, you have a real good handle on where trains are utilized, how they're utilized.
Right.
All right.
Exactly, yeah.
I want to say one thing before I continue. I am not anti-rail, okay? I don't have an opinion. I'm not allowed to have an opinion. Otherwise, my platform would be somewhat, the virus would be in. So I'm apolitical, non-denominational. That's why I basically got on my knees to thank Kurt Caldwell and say, thank you for coming in. You're the only guy that's pro-rail that I've been able to get the message out. It's just hard to get a pro-rail guy, it seems.
I think that people are against it.
What was that blatant and brutal statement you mentioned?
Yeah, the people are against this thing. It's so expensive, $6 billion, and it's just not going to be effective. That's the problem. And it's going to be ugly as well, too. This elevated monstrosity coming through town, we really don't need it. Now, $6 billion, that's kind of an abstract number, but when you transform it to, for example, building new apartments, you could build about 20,000 new apartments, new condominium apartments for that price,
okay,
for that money.
Again, Dennis Kalin, co-founder of Stop Rail Now, professional tour leader, regular citizen.
Right.
How much of that $6 billion is going to be supposedly paid for by the federal government?
Well, supposedly 1.5 billion, but we haven't seen that yet.
So that leaves us still carrying $4.5 billion.
Right, and there's no guarantee of any federal money. And this Mayor Carlisle has even suggested that he wants to build it even if we don't get any federal money. Now, we have some other big bills to pay. You know, we have to replace our sewage system. We've got to fix the water system. And we've got to resurface the roads, all of which is going to cost $5 billion more.
All right, here we go. Let's go there right now. This is Thursday's newspapers, Views and Voices, Public Needs. This is the view from the op-ed, from the Star ad. Public needs more information on rail. Now, you said the people don't want rail.
That's what I said, and I want to thank you, Jeff, for helping to bring that public information.
How do you know the people don't want rail? I remember voting for it a while back, and the numbers came out to be, what 0.04% in favor?
It was 50.6% did vote in favor of some kind of a rail, although there's a lot of problems with that vote back in 2008. The question itself on the ballot was confusing, and we were voting on a system that was priced at $3.8 billion, and now it's up to nearly $6 billion. Things have changed.
Wasn't there some fiasco over using public funds
to promote it? The advertising was really heavy on television and the newspapers. They did bulk mailings. The unions were buying ads on television. We, on the other hand, had no money really.
So you guys are anti-rail experts, so to speak.
We are.
And I'm just some poor guy that's got to get an education slammed into his brain once a day.
Right.
And of course, reading the paper, as everyone else should do such a thing. And here's what I've got. I'm trying to find out so far something positive to say about the rail, because what I've got so far is it was rammed down our throats. The technology was not looked at properly. The costs have gone up and up. They passed up Salt Lake. Doesn't go to the airport. Stops at Ala Moana Center. Good God. Follow the money. Talk about follow the money. Stops at Ala Moana Center.
Ends at Ala Moana, right.
Costs of moving it through Waikiki and into Manoa incur eminent domain costs. And what's the property value through Waikiki?
Right.
Condemnation of land.
And imagine how ugly a double deck down Kuhio Avenue is, the proposal.
Delay has city paying $15 million for change in rail plan. Rail Environmental Group criticizes city for $15 million. Rail's legal bills total $1.87 million.
Right.
There was an issue with the ever lovely city council voting for another extension of, how much was it? $400,000 or?
$450 million. The Carlisle says, oh, we can just float as bonds because the federal government has told the city your financial plan is inadequate. You've got to have backup financial plans. And so Carlisle is suggesting bonds, which means more tax money out of our property taxes. It's outrageous. It's really outrageous.
What I was getting to was, where is the good news?
Well, I
want to hear something positive. I mean, Councilman Berg came in here and threw out his maglev train, which is a lot less expensive.
That's just as bad. I'm not the person to talk about anything good about rail because I don't find anything good about rail. It's a disaster. It's an economic disaster. Jeff, people who live on this island, most of them are really not familiar with rail. They haven't ridden trains. They've just heard about it. Maybe they've read something in the paper. But they don't have much experience of seeing what does an urban metro system look like. Whereas I've been, as you mentioned, to 50 different urban metro systems around the world. I used to commute in Brooklyn to Manhattan for about a year or two. I really know that trains, urban metro trains, require high density population in order to be successful. In other words, you need a lot of people living near the train stations who can walk to the train. That's how they work. We do not have that on Oahu. Our residential population density is pretty low. It's spread out. Okay. It's maybe 4,000 people.
Let's cut
per
to the
square
chase
mile.
for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that the rail went in just as they wanted it to, with or without federal money, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
Rail on steel, elevated rail. The rail's in today. Who's going to ride it?
Yeah, not very many people. The city would like to claim that the city claims 60% of our population lives along the rail route, as if to imply that 60% are going to ride this thing. They think there'll be 100,000 daily trips. It'd be more likely 20,000 daily trips, which would be a complete disaster if that's all the people that are riding it. Not enough riders. Most of the day, it would be rather empty. At rush hour, okay, for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening, you might have people on that train coming in. Granted, that's only 2 hours out of the day going each in one direction. We don't have two-directional trips at rush hour. It's all coming in the morning, and then in the evening it's going back out to leeward. It's all about leeward.
Okay, so rail's done. Nobody can stop it. The banks want it. The unions want it. The politicians want it, some of them. And it's in and nobody rides it. Now, let me ask you this. In your opinion, why would anybody suggest we put in a rail system that everyone knows, including those suggesting it, that it's not going to work?
Well, it's all about the money. It's a political scam. It's a $6 billion project, which is just a huge amount of money for these politicians to be dishing out to big corporations, to unions, and they're hoping in return they'll get some political contributions, campaign contributions. That's how politics works, we know. Get some union people waving signs for them, get special interests running ads on television for them, super PAC committees. Who knows where the money is going to be coming from, but like in 2008, there was a lot of money, millions of dollars were spent on the advertising, and it's probably going to happen again. It's different this time. We have a strong candidate for mayor, Ben Cayetano, who is completely against the train, and when he gets elected, he will pull the plug on this train, and he can do it. Because when he gets elected, let's hope August 11th in the primary with 51% of the vote, it's going to send a very clear message to the federal government and the state government that the public has definitely turned against rail.
The question I asked you was why do something that's a bad idea, and your answer was money.
Money.
And then some people in different vested interests would want that money bad enough to go ahead and sell their state down the river. And you mentioned the millions were spent on advertisement.
Right. That's
now,
true.
if you're going to spend millions on advertisement, as my own little, small little world, I see television and newspaper. What else you got?
Well, radio.
Well, I welcome that. You guys come on in. Don't forget. In other words, you're talking to Honolulu Advertiser, which just wrote this article today on transparency, and you're going to get a dose of the guys who got paid some odd $1 million to help. Says here that are blaming delays, $15 million to pay the company contracted for the final segment. Jeff, blaming delays in construction start. The costly change order is not about to stall the massive undertaking. So here we are getting told right up front from the people who get paid to advertise that this is going to happen. Nothing can stop it. It is going to happen. The train has left the station. What do you say about that?
Well, again, I come back to the election for mayor. Thank goodness for Ben Cayetano that he's been brave enough, courageous enough to step forward this way. Ben doesn't have to do this race. He's very comfortable. He's served 2 terms as governor. He has a distinguished career in the Senate, the State House. But he's come forward to give us this alternative. Now, I'm by no means suggesting, Jeff, that the newspaper's pro-rail stance is because they're getting advertising from the pro-railers or the bankers. That's not the case. The newspaper is in favor of rail for their own reasons. Who knows exactly why they seem to be leaning towards rail? They've used to
maybe the reasons you just said they weren't.
It could be that you can say that. But some of the reporting has been quite good. There's been some objective analysis, but it's such a complicated issue. It's hard to boil it down into a soundbite for television or even an article in the newspaper.
Okay, gang, you know that's my cup of tea because I've been trying to boil it down for weeks and weeks now, and I hope I'm starting to get there.
You've given it a lot of space, a lot of time, which is what it needs so people can begin to understand.
You're a ride-a-rail guy, and you see nothing but negativity and money being squandered towards going for rail.
It really, it's a disaster. And this really tragic part is that by spending that $6 billion, we're not going to have any money left over for real solutions for our traffic congestion. You know, we can all agree that we do have a traffic problem, especially the folks coming in from the leeward side. And by putting all the $6 billion into a single train line, it is just not only not going to fix the problem, it's going to use up all of our available funds with nothing left over.
Now, Ben Cayetano again came out in the paper, and it's going to be a very interesting race. I told you I had Mr. Kurt Caldwell in here recently, and Ben Cayetano came out, and one of the main things that he tried to backpedal on was this is not all about rail. I'm not coming to be the mayor just because of rail.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Ben is not a single issue candidate. In fact, it's Caldwell who's been the single issue candidate, and it's Carlisle who's been the single issue mayor. They're doing nothing but push rail at the cost of ignoring the rest of the city government. Our roads need repaving. The sewers are leaking. We have a water main break every day.
And again, the only logical explanation for that is money. To get money into campaigns, to get money to make profits at banks, and to send the unions to work in order to get campaign back.
I think so. I think it's money, it's land and power, it's influence. Go to Ben Cayetano's website, which is Vote Ben 2012. And see how you can get involved.
Yep, because I'm in here with Dennis Kalin.
Still here, yep.
Dennis, you have an Olelo show too as well?
Yeah, I have a travel show. I've been on Olelo for 21 years with my travel show. I'm on Friday nights at 6:30, Channel 52.
Again, the reason that you're here, Dennis, is because you've ridden trains basically most of your adult life.
Right. You
lead tour groups out there, and you looked at the idea of putting a rail
I've closely looked at the rail situation, and Jeff, we've already covered a lot of ground in your program today, and I've got some more new points, some fresh new points to bring up.
Let me hear it.
Okay. The fact is that very few people are going to use the train. How few? Well, the city's own study says that currently we've got about 6% of our commuters using mass transit in the morning, in the afternoon. They take the bus, 6%. With rail, that's only going to increase to 7.6%. So there's only an increase of like under 2 percentage points of new people using transit for $6 billion.
No, but won't the bus still continue to put their 6% in?
No, the total with bus and rail would go from the current 6% only up to 7.6%. This is the city's numbers from their EIS.
Dennis, I tell you, I get this education. Every once in a while, a little bubble pops in my epiphanied head.
No.
And I just got it. And I got it partly from you. And the fact is, we can't afford a rail to run only at rush hour. 2 hours or 3 hours a day of income generation.
Right.
Not to mention that this rail is there's no feeder lines, there's none of this.
Right.
We are really unsuited to have a single direct line going from one point to point A to point B with the way we live here.
You got it. Everybody else is driving cars. 93% of us will continue in our cars. So we need to do something about the road capacity. We need to get rid of some bottlenecks. We need to add a lane where we can. We need to keep the paving good. And if we have more people in express buses, then that will encourage people to leave their car, and we'll have a better traffic situation altogether. Now, an express bus, you can sit down. On the train, everybody's going to be standing. 80% of the passengers at rush hour would be standing on the train.
Why can they sit on a bus?
Well, the bus has more seats. The bus has more seats, And actually, a given lane has more capacity to carry people if they're on a bus than if they're on a train. You'd think, oh, a train is high capacity, but that's not the case. Actually, a lane for buses can carry many more people than a lane for trains.
What about the cost of carrying people on a bus relative to electrically powered trains?
Well, buses can be electrically powered eventually too, and the cost of constructing those lanes is infinitesimally small compared to $6 billion for a train. It might cost you $1 billion to really create a wonderful express bus system. Let's give that, say $1 billion. Panos has done some studies about that.
You throw these words out there, an express bus system. What does that mean in nuts and bolts?
Well, that would mean that it could pick you up in your community. Perhaps you're living in Mililani. You could drive a couple miles to a park and ride lot, or you could take a shuttle van to an express bus stop in Mililani. And you get in the bus there, and then it's nonstop. It goes directly, or from Waipahu, or Pearl City, or Waianae. It'll go nonstop. Unlike the train, which stops every mile or every half mile, there's 21 stops on the train. So the express bus doesn't stop. It gets you there faster, you're sitting down, you're comfortable, and it's a lot less expensive.
But there already are those buses, are there not?
Well, there are some, and they're doing a decent job, but they could have a little bit better laneage. The zipper lanes could be extended.
Again,
for example.
what makes you think people are going to ride the bus? They're not going to ride the train, according to the anti-train guys. If you threw more bus, obviously, if they were clamoring to ride the bus
Right.
company would provide them. But I don't hear that.
Well, of course, most people want to drive in their cars because you cannot beat the convenience of a car, and 93% of us will continue driving in our cars. There's no doubt about it. We're talking about increasing the bus ridership by 2%, 3%, and that can be done with the better bus lanes, better equipment. You have seats, and also buses are more energy efficient than trains. That's a
And let me
surprise
see if
to
I got
people.
my lesson right today. You want to increase the bus ridership by 2 to 3%, and the city's best estimate is that if the rail is built, it increases the public transportation by 1.6%.
That's pretty much it. Yeah, no matter what kind of terrific mass transit you come up with, it's never going to carry 20% of the population or even 15%.
Well, according to your co-host yesterday, he had a way to do this, and the way to do it was to penalize people for driving.
I don't think we have to get to that point yet. Now, if you're living in a big city like New York, of course, you're riding on mass transit. You've got more than half those people not driving a car because they're in a huge city. We are not in that situation, obviously. So people here, they drive.
I'm looking right now at Mr. Dennis Kalin, 2 master's degrees UH, graduate work in urban planning, co-founder of Stop Rail Now, 2007, professional tour leader, over 75 tours, mostly on trains in Europe. You've seen trains work in 500 different intercity situations, 15 urban metros.
Yeah, I love trains. I really, really love trains in the right place.
Okay.
There's right places and wrong places.
Talking about the rail and why, according to Dennis, it's got nothing going for it unless you happen to be someone who's going to make a lot of money because it's being built. Okay, Mr. Kalin, final words. You got 1 minute or less.
Okay, well, one more big issue is this so-called transit-oriented development. The city says, well, maybe there's not many people living by the stations now, but, we're going to build high-density communities around these stations in Waipahu and out in Kapolei. Well, it doesn't happen on mainland systems. They find that very little development does occur around train stations.
All right, stop. You made your points. Every single point of what's supposed to be good about this rail, you've got an anti-point on it.
It's true.
You're not going to make money by being an anti-pointer. This is just coming out of your knowledge and your beliefs. Is that correct?
The final point is to vote for Ben Cayetano and go to his website, which is Vote Ben 2012. He's our man.
All right, your solar guy, Jeff, wants to thank Mr. Dennis Kalin for coming back in and helping us get our brains wrapped around what's happening with rail.
Jeff.
I'm your solar guy, Jeff Davis. You're good.
Oh, thank you.
You've got it down.